As Election Day approaches, how will U.S. foreign policy change in a new administration? What would be the difference if Joe Biden becomes commander-in-chief as opposed to 4 years of President Trump? Joining us to discuss this and more is national security expert and author of the new book, The Choice: Trump versus Obama-Biden in U.S. Foreign Policy, Walid Phares. Walid, in your new book, you write about the Iran deal, and you say the Trump decision to end the Iran deal in 2018 was perhaps the most important of all decisions in foreign policy and in national security of his entire first term. In fact, it is the linchpin of Washington's challenges with the Middle East and international relations in general in this decade. Why was that the most consequential decision of Trump's tenure internationally?
That was the central decision, Raymond, that was made by the Trump administration, along with other very important decisions, including the crushing of all the jihadist organizations, including the ISIS caliphate. But why the Iran deal? Let me begin domestically. The reason for why the Obama administration first during 2016, then the Obama bureaucrats in 2017 were opposing Trump, it's not just about hate. It's really about they were concerned that he will cancel the Iran deal because all their interests were behind that Iran deal here and in Europe. So when he withdrew from the Iran deal, this opened doors, many doors. I'll speak at least of one, the Abraham Accords, the now famous historical peace treaties between UAE, Bahrain, and Israel were only possible if and when Trump would have withdrawn from the Iran deal, because those countries were threatened by Iran. Saudi was threatened by Iran. Israel was threatened by Iran as well.
The State Department objected to the expiration of the UN arms embargo on Iran, which ended this past Sunday. The embargo barred Iran from purchasing weapons like tanks and fighter jets. Now that embargo is no longer in place, what is each candidate's position on Iran's new purchasing power, and how does this change the U.S.-Iran balance in relations?
Another crucial question, Raymond. Well, it was the Obama-Biden administration that actually gave the cash, $150 billion, to the Iranian regime, which Iranian regime will be using to buy the weapons from Russia, North Korea, China. It's just unbelievable. And what the Biden-Harris campaign have committed to do? Guess what? To go back to the Iran deal. So to send more cash and more money and open the markets of the Iranian regime to the world. So it's like almost a suicide. I mean, they have not learned from the first 8 years of the Obama-Biden. Now they're going to repeat it again, the Biden-Harris administration. That would be, in my view, the mother of all mistakes. First of all, if they are elected, and second, if they go back to the Iran deal.
How will this now affect the U.S. relationship with countries such as Syria, considered to be a strategic ally with Iran or Lebanon, to whom the U.S. is allies, but also Hezbollah is there. This is a big political group in Lebanon with close ties to Iran.
Absolutely, Raymond. Basically, the Iran deal, go back to the alpha and the omega. The Iran deal allowed the militias of Iran, funded and because of the relaxation of sanctions by the Obama-Biden administration, to control all of Iraq, 2/3 of Syria, and all of Lebanon, part of Yemen. So you're asking about Syria and Lebanon. U.S. policy was paralyzed, not being able to help the Free Lebanese against Hezbollah, to help the Kurds and the other minorities against also the Iranian militias and, of course, ISIS, because of that deal. So the Trump administration, with one strike, removing the Iran deal away from the scene, was able to change U.S. policy towards Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria. But guess what? Amidst a very strong opposition by the bureaucrats of the previous administration. So they need more time to complete what was started in 2017.
Well, you mentioned this earlier, but this past August, the Trump administration announced those deals with the United Arab Emirates and Israel. They signed that peace accord. Naturally, the United States was a sponsor to that. Israel also agreed to freeze some West Bank land nationalization. The Emirates agreed to fully normalize relations with Israel. Then Bahrain followed suit. I mean, it's been over 25 years since Israel's entered into a peace agreement with an Arab country. And other Arab countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, could be joining the agreement. How will that change the political and strategic landscape of the Middle East? and give me the preview of both administrations coming in. What might happen?
Well, I am a witness to two things, two historical developments. I have been a witness for the last 25 years since I was a professor here in America, and then published, and of course was advising members of Congress, met with Arab leaders, with many politicians from the Middle East, to how over the past 25 years, no administration was able to do something very simple, which is bring in the Israelis, bring in the moderate Arabs. That's what I have recommended. And my book is very clear. You begin with the moderates, you bring them into the peace process, and then you produce the beginning. It become a much mightier, bigger Abraham Accord. Now, obviously, we're going to wait to see the result of the elections, as you just mentioned. If it's a Biden administration, they're going to go back to the Iran deal, which means Arab countries are not going to come to the peace process. Something more dangerous could happen is that the next possible Biden administration is going to put pressure on Bahrain, on UAE, on Saudis, on the Bibi Netanyahu government to tell them, look, guys, I'm not going to help you before you go back to the Iran deal. So that would be a very, very dangerous situation. If Trump is reelected, then they're going to go full steam. Saudi will be in, Morocco will be in, Oman will be in, and many other countries.
Do you think there's a danger in too much peace, Walid, because people take their eye off of foreign policy? And, we're worried about things that, frankly, a president can't control, like COVID. I mean, COVID-19 could hit, the flu can hit, all kinds of things can hit. These are diseases. You deal with them as you can, you mitigate their effects, but you can't stop them. Foreign policy is a different animal entirely. Is there a danger here that Trump has withdrawn from so many of these hot spots and set up such general peace in the region that the American people have stopped caring?
It's not the American people. The American men and women are smart people, have instinct. They understand if the leadership will explain to them. This is the most advanced, most educated country on the face of earth, but it's really an issue of leadership. You just mentioned COVID-19. Yeah, COVID-19, asteroids, tidal wave coming. These are matters that are associated with the history of the planet, and we have to deal with it. You think if the other side, the opposition, will come to the administration, will they change? Will they invent something different? No. This is a matter that bipartisan approach should take care of it. Now, with regard to the American public, I agree that we have not seen a debate on foreign policy. Why is the Biden camp not willing to engage in a foreign policy debate with the Trump campaign is a question.
And this was always Biden's claim to fame. Remember, he was the foreign policy expert, Walid. And yet, the Biden-Obama administration got us into tons of these Middle East entanglements and flashpoints all over the world where we were just sending troops and surging after surge. I want to get to something in your book. In the introduction, you say, enlighten the American public, that this is your intention, to enlighten the American public and international public opinion about the choices we Americans have to make for the sake of this country and the world. If you had to quickly summarize, what are the main differences between the competing Trump-Biden foreign policy visions? What you call the third Obama term if Biden wins?
Well, if Biden wins, it's, as you said, as I wrote, it's the third Obama term. It will be an Obama on steroids term, which means they're going to go back and consolidate what they lost. That would be the Iran deal. They're going to actually have a partnership with the Muslim Brotherhood, meaning they're going to put pressure on the Egyptian government, on the Libyan government, on many other governments. Their vision of the Middle East, which was shaped by academia here, by people who are very sympathetic to the jihadists, is create one caliphate with the Muslim Brotherhood and another imamate with the Iranian deal. That would be seriously and strategically a threat, not just against our allies, but eventually against us. And of course, on the domestic level, homeland security, vetting the radicals, making sure that the borders are not going to crumble, all of that will be also a major difference between the two choices that we have ahead of us. So basically, it's not just the well-being of the United States, it's the existence of the United States.
In the past year, we've seen China become increasingly more aggressive towards Hong Kong, now Taiwan and the surrounding islands in the South China Sea. How do you see a Trump administration versus a Biden administration dealing with this aggressive, rising China?
It's very simple. As historians can understand that very quickly, the 8 years of the Clinton administrations in the 90s have brought in China, this China, into the world market with no control, no equations to contain them. Then the 8 years of the Obama administration, that's a 16 years policy towards China, were not successful in containing China. China is not Germany. It's a strong economy, mega economy, but it's controlled by the Communist Party. And China today is omnipresent in all continents. They have markets everywhere.
Yep.
And they are also using their influence within the United States. We allow them to do many things. Trump did a good deal with China. Unfortunately, COVID-19 and the riots here, sort of paralyzed that policy. But in a second term, Trump will actually show the American people that we can live with China, but we need to control what the Chinese are doing to our economy.
You write about Antifa and BLM in your book. How much of a national security problem are these groups, and how should they be dealt with?
In the U.S., we all know we have freedom of speech. But what we saw in Seattle and Portland was not, a freedom of speech expressed. It was actually a violence against the freedom of speech of others. Now, if that is not actually controlled and put back into where it belongs, freedom of speech, then this could go nationwide. And my concern is that this could be manipulated by outside forces coming either from Latin America, radicals from Latin America, or even from the Middle East and beyond. I mean, we have information that the Iranian regime and their supporters in the Middle East were cheering for Antifa. And of course, they were saying that Antifa is going to create the crumbling of the United States. They don't care about Antifa and BLM in Iran or the Marxists. They care about the United States collapsing.
Yeah. Walid, it is a sobering book, The Choice, Trump versus Obama-Biden in U.S. Foreign Policy by Dr. Walid Phares. It's available at bookstores everywhere and online. Walid, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.